Today I want to share 7 tips for leveling your warrior in Classic. These aren't the 7 most impactful tips. They're the 7 tips you're most likely to miss based on the existing guides out there. Basically, when I got into the beta, I decided I was going to roll a warrior, so I did a lot of research, but I still ended up learning a lot while leveling, so here are the 7 things I wish I had known before I started. Tip number 1, understand why warriors are bad. Warriors have a lot going against us when we're leveling. We start with an empty resource bar, we take a ton of damage, we're heavily gear dependent, and we have difficulty escaping dangerous situations. But all of these things added up don't amount to much more than annoyance and occasional frustration. What makes us really bad levelers is that we don't have a lot of resources to help us punch up. Every other class has multiple tricks they can use to take down mobs a few levels above them when a quest calls for it. We're mostly limited to retaliation, which is a 30-minute cooldown, and even then, it's not exactly an I win button. When you're leveling, you're going to be asked to kill mobs that you just can't kill. So when you're leveling, it's really important to work on quests where the mobs are at your level or slightly below your level. And you want to save your cooldowns for when you really need them. I developed a nasty habit of popping retaliation whenever I accidentally pulled 2 mobs, and as a result, I never had it up when I actually needed it. Around level 40, things get better because you can pool rage when killing easier mobs and then dump all that rage onto a bigger mob that you wouldn't be able to kill normally. But until then, save your cooldowns. Tip number 2, check your sources. Most guides out there right now get a lot wrong because they're based on private servers. There are 2 big misconceptions that are especially common. First is the belief that Enrage can proc off crits caused by sitting down, which leads some guides to recommend that you level Fury. Enrage does not proc if you are crit while sitting down. You should level arms the entire way to 60. Second is an overemphasis on hamstring kiting, which does not work on Classic. If you want to be pedantic, both of these things can work in Classic, but they are very unreliable. Hamstring kiting is definitely a technique you want to learn, but it's not going to be a significant part of your leveling experience because it just doesn't work on most mobs. Those are just 2 of the inaccuracies I noticed, so if you're reading a guide or watching a YouTube video, make sure you check the date so you know you're getting useful information. Tip number 3, get yourself an add-on to help with Battle Shout. Battle Shout is an extremely powerful buff, but it's also probably the most annoying self-buff in the game. You really don't want to be checking it all the time, so get yourself an add-on that lets you take your mind off of it and focus on playing the game. I use a Weak Auras trigger that puts a big ugly icon right in the middle of my screen when Battle Shout falls off. Tip number 4, weapon progression is everything. Okay, most guides do cover this in detail, but I still feel like it's underemphasized. If I had to write a warrior leveling guide in just 4 words, those 4 words would be, upgrade your weapon regularly. You know what I'm going to do when I get a new weapon in Classic? I'm going to check my weapon progression sheet to see when I get my next upgrade. If you find yourself gaining 5 or more levels and not upgrading your weapon, consult a weapon progression sheet. I'll link to a good one in the description. And do not avoid using staffs. Look, no one wants to be a staff warrior, but the only thing that matters is weapon damage. Take any upgrade you can, no matter how silly it looks. Tip number 5, get your stance macros set up early. So for some reason, I was under the impression that stancing was something you didn't worry about until level 60, but that is not true. Since you're going to be leveling arms, you're going to be able to retain 25 rage when you switch stances, so you want to get your macros set up as soon as you get a useful ability that requires a different stance. At a minimum, you need to get this figured out by level 36 when you get Whirlwind. Once Whirlwind is in your rotation, you'll be bouncing between Battle Stance and Berserker Stance, and your ability priority won't be based on damage, but rather by efficient rage use. Tip number 6, know your level ups. This one is just for your sanity. Know your upcoming upgrades, both in terms of your weapons and your abilities. Everyone knows about Mortal Strike at 40, but Whirlwind at 36 is huge and can be a light at the end of the tunnel when you're struggling in the early 30s. And when you do reach one of these local maximas in your power level, don't be afraid to grind out a level or 2. Level 40 is a great time to do this, as you'll have just got Whirlwind, Mortal Strike, and a rare weapon from Scarlet Monastery. You'll feel absolutely unstoppable compared to where you were at level 35, so go take it out on some mobs in the world. Tip number 7, don't stack spirit. Okay, I'm going against the grain here. Most people will tell you to stack spirit because warriors scale well with spirit and it will cut your downtime between mobs. This is all true. The problem with this strategy is that you're usually cutting stamina or damage for spirit. So in exchange for decreased downtime, you're increasing your chance of dying. That increase is very small, but multiplied over the thousands of mobs you're going to kill while leveling up, you're going to rack up more deaths. And all that time you saved between pulls may be offset by your long corpse runs. And since spirit is useless in combat, you're reducing the level of mobs you can actually kill, which is going to reduce the level of quests you can do. Since warriors already want to be doing quests at or below their level, if you stack too much spirit, you may find yourself doing a lot of green quests for reduced experience. For me, stacking spirit is a gimmick that just isn't worth it. And finally, a bonus tip: be careful taking quest items near max level. This one is straight from Scarm, and it's something I wouldn't have even thought of if I didn't see his video. As you approach level 60, you're going to complete some quests which give you the choice of 2 pieces of good gear, often 1 piece for protection and 1 for DPS. Whatever choice you make, you'll have to live with, because Blizzard GMs aren't going to let you change your mind. Scarm has a really good video summarizing these, and I highly recommend it. I'll link it in the description. And that's it. Hopefully I haven't scared you off leveling a warrior. This is probably the last video I'll release before launch. Part 2 of my 20 tips for new raiders series will drop a week or so into Classic. Until then, have fun on launch day.